Today's card uses a unique combination of cutting dies and a stamp set that's made just for these cutting dies. So if you are intrigued by the look of this card, please stay tuned and I'll show you how to make it. Today I'll be using the Flower Frenzy die set and stamp set. So the die set has 12 different dies, and the stamp set, which matches with the die set, has about 32 stamps. So there's lots of different types of flowers that will work well with the dies, as well as different greetings too. So this is a very, very versatile stamp set. You can use it not only with the matching dies, which is recommended, but you can use this on its own, and it has some really pretty intricate flowers too. So with that, let's get started. Now I'm going to be using this paper pack called Gypsy Jewels, and it's a single-sided paper pack, so just white on the back. But as you can see, these jewel tones are perfect for leaves and flowers, so that's what I'm going to be using. It's not in the bundle today, but I will link it below in my description. So I'm going to start by cutting out some of these flowers and leaves. Alright, so I have my die cutting machine ready. This is the e-bosser, but you can use pretty much any die cutting machine for these thin metal. They're called wafer dies, the type of die they are. So I have my stack ready, and if you have this same machine, you'll have your D. This is the D platform, followed by the C platform, followed by the B mat, and then this is an optional layer, but it's a magnetic shim to help hold the dies in place. Then you'll have your actual dies, and important, make sure your die blades are facing upward so that they will cut into the top mat and not cut apart your magnetic shim. So I'm going, my usual process with cutting dies, if I'm not sure exactly how many of each color I'll need exactly, I just place a bunch of dies on here and cut them all out at once, and that way I can have all of the shapes I need if I need them. So I'm going to place the paper pattern side down and turn my machine on. It's got the power button lights up, so super simple. And I'm going to slide this into the mouth of my die cutting machine, and it automatically accepts the stack, and it has this door that opens up automatically. And I just pick it up when it releases on the other end. Remove this top plate here and remove my flowers. Now I do want to point out these larger flowers, like this one has an inner flower and an outer outline, so you can use these together or separate, or you can cut it out of two different papers and have different colors. And that also happens with this die right here. In my paper, if it gets stuck, you can always use like a little poker tool or pencil to get this out, or if you have something like this, the tool-in-one also works, has different tips to it. And so those are the two flowers that have two shapes that come out of them, and then this large one has also cut little separate petals that kind of come up. You can curl them up, or you can curl up the outer petals, if you can see that. So it's really up to you. So from here I'm going to cut some more flowers and some of my leaf dies, And I'm going to cut a bunch of extra just in case I change my mind on what color I want. And that's just a tip for you. I like to do all my cutting at once so I don't have to keep going back and forth with the die cutting machine. But I'm going to be right back after I've cut all my pieces. So here's a quick shot of what I've cut out. Now obviously I'm not going to use every single piece here, but for example for the leaves, you want to make sure you have enough, if you're going to back these little leaves, you want to make sure you have enough of the contrasting paper leaves. So basically just count how many of the branches you're going to use. So if I want like 2 of these big branches and then 1 smaller one, I'll have 8 leaves, so I need to cut that many of these small leaf shapes to back those leaves, if that makes sense. Alright, so now I'm going to move on with the card. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how these stamps worked exactly on these shapes. So I cut out one of every shape here, and basically you take one of these flower shapes and you put it behind your stamp. You can see that it fits almost exactly that shape. So that's how you know which stamp goes to which shape. And for example, here's a 5-pointed flower that obviously goes with a 5-pointed die cut flower. And we also have the leaf. So there's the 3-leaf branch, and that matches up perfectly with that 3-leaf branch. There's a 2-leaf branch. And look at that, it's kind of like a matching game. Kind of fun actually. And then these two go on the same flower, so right there, right there. This one you can tell are these two here. And then this one is here and here. So it looks like there's at least 2 possibilities for each of the flowers, which is really cool. And then like this tiny flower and this one too, I think could go on any of them. So really there's a lot of possibilities. Oh, I didn't want to forget the large leaf. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this. It's a really pale yellow. But there's one stamp that could go on there. There's another stamp. And then the small leaf too, let me get one of those, is on here. So like this stamp would go on there. So anyway, hopefully you get the idea. You just basically match up whatever stamp you want on the flower you want, and it matches up perfectly with the shape. And one thing to note, there is a swirl, like a flourish die. I don't see any stamps on here that match up with the flourish, but it's a pretty thin shape. I think it would be pretty difficult to embellish this die cut shape anyway, but it's a really pretty shape to use on its own. Anyway, I'm going to stamp some of these flowers with my Versamark ink pad, and this is because I'm going to heat emboss them with the hot off the press super fine embossing powder in white, because that's going to show up really well in my darker flowers. And I'm going to go ahead and take one of my stamps. I just pick one here. And for this one, I'm going to use this stamp. I'll use the biggest flower here. Since this is a brand new stamp set, it's got this kind of a glossy, shiny coating on the stamping surface. So what I like to do is take this kneaded gray eraser, which you can find at pretty much any art supply or office supply store. It's a flexible eraser, which I actually love for regular pencils, because you can actually mold it. And I just brush this over the surface of the stamp, and it gets that glossy coating off, and it makes stamping much better, especially if you're using this as a colored ink. But this is for embossing, so this is going to be clear. Inking up my stamp, you can do it this way, which I usually do, or you can do it this way. Same kind of deal. So the tricky part, the only tricky part here is lining up the stamp with the flower here without shifting around too much. So just kind of eyeball it, and that's the lucky thing that these stamps are clear, because you can see exactly where that stamp is going to go. Okay, pretty confident about that. Peel that off. Now you can't see it yet, but you will. I'm going to pour on some of this white embossing powder. And then just gonna pick that up. Try not to touch it. Oops. Tap it off on the back a little bit. And how beautiful is that? And this stamp design even goes around the outer edges of the petals that can be lifted up, or the inner petals can be lifted up as well. So it's been really well thought out in the design of these stamps. So now I'm going to get another piece of scratch paper, and I'm going to emboss this with my heat gun. Set this aside for a second. Now you see it flew away. That's another tip. If you have something that can kind of hold it in place, that's very helpful. So, forgot to do that. So I'm just going to use my little poker tool thing to hold it in place. Alright, so this thing is actually called a craft pick. It's been worn off, but it's a Tim Holtz Tonic by Tonic craft pick. Anyway, it's retractable, it's a really handy tool to have, and it's used for lots of different things. So there is my embossed flower. Let me see if I can get an even closer up on here. Alright, so this is pretty much as close up as I can get, but you can see how beautiful the detail is with this stamp on this die cut flower. And you can even curl up these petals. You can kind of curl them back again to make them a little dimensional. There's lots of things you can do with this particular die cut, but I'm going to continue stamping and embossing the rest of my pieces, and I'll return when I'm done with that. Alright, so I ended up doing 3 big ones and 3 medium ones, and I'm only going to use 5 flowers, I think, so I'm going to take one of those away. But I'm also doing these 2 branches, so I did them in the light, very light green, and or those are the backing are the light green, but the actual branches are the darker green. I don't know if you can tell because it's all turned white now with the embossing. But anyway, for my card, this is a regular 6.5 inch by 5 inch blank card, and I've made a couple tiny markings on here just at 1 1/4 inches from the fold from the edge here. And I'm going to take this violet suede paper, also available on paperwishes.com, and glue it just up until those markings. My handy dandy photo glue stick, and just gonna match it up to both of those markings to make it straight, and then go along the bottom edge here. And then I can just take my retractable knife here and a ruler. And sometimes you could do this without a ruler, but I'm just going to use the ruler just to be sure. And just go along the edge. Yep, there we go. And then along this edge. And that makes sure that you make the maximum use of your paper and there's no waste. So that's awesome. Okay. So now that I have this purple section on most of my card, I'm going to fill in that white section with some of this striped green paper. And I'll just trim that to fit as well. Alright, now that I've finished covering my card here, I'm going to first arrange my largest flowers. And then these two. Kind of like that. And these are all going to be foam taped, but I'm going to glue the leaves down. They'll be somewhere around here. And I might go like that. And the greeting will be right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I am almost done. For this greeting, I just embossed that in white onto this, this is the purple striped paper. And I just cut a little bit of a V on this end, matted it on white cardstock, and then just foam taped it to the card right here. My leaves are glued down with tacky glue, and the rest of the stuff is foam taped. And as you can see, it's got quite a bit of dimension because I've folded up the petals, so only the centers of the flowers are foam taped down. And same for the medium ones, I didn't fold those up as much, but you can see there's quite a bit of dimension going on. And right now I'm just going to add a little bit of bling to the centers of the flowers and then I'll be done. Alright, so I just used the Lavender Bling, and this is what it looks like here. So there's 3 different sizes. I used the medium size, and this is also available in paper, which is, I believe it's under $2. It's a really awesome value. So I've got my 5 flowers in the 5 centers. For these large ones I used the medium jewels, and then the medium ones I used the small. So there you have it. It's got a little bit of softness to it with the suede paper, some bling, some dimension, a little bit of everything to this card. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please stay tuned for today's bundle. Thank you so much for watching. In the bundle we have the Flower Frenzy cutting dies, and there are a dozen dies in this set. And there's basically 2 large, 2 medium, 2 small of the flowers, and those all stack nicely, and you can create dozens of different looks with those. And then there's 2 leafy branches, and there's 3 leaf shapes. Now this leaf is kind of like a outline of a leaf with little inner lines, and then this is just a solid leaf shape. So if you cut this out, you can place it behind this leaf and it'll give you a backing. Same thing with this. It has these cutout shapes that have an evacuated area, and then you can use this die to cut out a contrasting paper to back those evacuated areas, and it'll fit perfectly behind those leaf shapes. And these are all the exact same shape. And then there's of course a beautiful swirl, which is also very versatile, and you can use that in tons of different ways. And speaking of versatile, the bundle, we have also the Flower Frenzy stamp set, and this comes with about 32, I think, different stamps. So it's got all the stamps that match perfectly the dies, and it also has some extra artwork and some greetings. So we have congrats, happy birthday to you, just for you, love you, thanks a bunch, hello, thinking of you. And honestly, the stamps that I use the most are greeting stamps, and so this would be used probably tons and tons of times just for the words alone. But the flowers are also so versatile. Everyone pretty much loves flowers, but not only do they match the dies, like I said before, but they could be used alone and in tons and tons of different ways. So I hope you enjoyed this week's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next week.